Picture this. You're at a networking event, one of those ones where the room is always just a little bit too cold. There's a bread roll on your plate that you're debating whether you should eat, or in my case, I'm tossing up whether to flag down the waitstaff to see if there's a gluten-free option. The main course is chicken. And what is it about events and the chicken is always dry? And you're sitting there thinking, should I get a glass of wine? I mean, it's lunch. Is it okay? Oh, she ordered a glass of wine. Maybe I'll have just one. And the conversation around the table is doing what it always does at these things. Someone has just come back from a trade show and they are lit up. They found a new supplier. They're going to have incredible margins. They can't believe this amazing product. And you feel a little bit of a flutter of something. Maybe it's envy, or maybe it's that feeling of, am I missing out on something here? And then someone else at the table mentions that they have just had their best quarter ever. Best quarter ever. And then the table does that thing where everyone smiles and says, oh, that's amazing. But inside, you're doing the math so fast that you can almost lose track of the conversation. Best quarter ever. What does that mean for them? Are they bigger than me? Are they smaller than me? Are they smaller and they're doing better? Oh. And then the woman to your left, she sighs and she says, oh, foot traffic has been brutal for me. Absolutely brutal. And then you feel something shift because yours has been okay. It's actually been better than okay. And suddenly you're recalibrating. Oh, maybe I'm doing okay after all. And it goes like that, back and forth around the table. Someone is smashing it online. Someone is struggling with returns. Someone just hired a new employee and they are absolutely terrified. Someone else is thinking about closing their second location. And every single comment, every single one is going through this invisible filter in your head. Better than me, worse than me, same as me, ahead, behind. Okay, so I'm probably sitting around here. And by the time dessert arrives, which let's be honest, you are absolutely going to eat because the chicken was terrible, you've landed somewhere. You've got a bit of a feeling, you've got a read on the room, and you have a sense of roughly where you think you're sitting at. And the word that probably comes to mind is, okay, you're doing okay. Now here is where I want to spill the tea. Because as you're sitting at that table, running that invisible scorecard against every person there, there's something that you don't know about those people. Something nobody was saying out loud, and probably something most of them may not even fully know themselves. The Federal Reserve looked at small businesses in 2024, and they found that less than half, 46%, were actually turning a profit. So if we go back to that table, obviously it depends on which room you're in, but if we go back to that general networking table, 4 or 5 of those businesses at your table of 10 are making money. 3 or 4 of them are actively losing it. And the rest are just treading water. They're just keeping the lights on. They're just getting through. Now think about that. Because you just used that table to decide where your business is sitting. You've used this table as your benchmark. And that is the ruler that you are holding yourself and your business up against. And every time you've told yourself that you're doing all right, every time you've decided that you don't need to push a little bit harder or expect anything more from business because of the economy or because of inflation or because people aren't buying, that was the ruler that you were using. But the stats tell us that that is likely a group of people who are largely not making money. They're telling each other it's tough out there, and every one of you leaving that lunch may be feeling like you're doing okay. Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. I'm Salena Knight, and I'm so glad you could join us because here we talk about ways that you can make money and grow your retail or e-commerce business. So here's why I decided to write an entire podcast about this. Because while you're sitting at that table thinking everybody's okay, it's actually costing you. Because here's the truth about that room. Some of those people around that table are genuinely fine with where they are at. They've built themselves a business to give themselves a job, and a job that they love. They love turning up. They love serving their customers. They love packing orders. They take home a modest wage. They go home. And that is a completely legitimate choice. But I want you to sit with something for a second. Because if most of those businesses around that table are not profitable, if nearly half of those small businesses are actively losing money or barely breaking even, then a lot of those people sitting around the table, the ones who seem to be doing okay, who seem to be managing, are probably taking home less than they would if they just went and worked in a store or got the corporate job that they came from. Same hours, same effort, same grind, except none of the risk, none of the stress, and none of the responsibility of running a business on top of it. But yet there is less money in their pocket at the end of it than if they had just gone and worked for somebody else. And if that is the group that you are benchmarking against, the standard that you've been measuring yourself against every time you've told yourself that everything is okay, then that is actually your competitors who are keeping you stuck where you are right now. They are not pushing you towards more. They're making you feel like less is actually normal. And when less feels normal, you stop questioning it. You stop pushing against it. You stop adjusting and you settle. And you call it being realistic. But I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you didn't start a business to earn less than a salary. And if this episode does one thing today, I want it to be this. I want you to question whether okay for somebody else is actually okay for you, for your dreams, for what you want in your life, what you want for your family, and you want for your business. Because okay, it doesn't have to be like that. And I say that as someone who is sat across from literally hundreds of store owners who are working their absolute backsides off and still wondering why it doesn't feel like it's enough. They're not stuck in this okay because they're lazy. I mean, these people are working sometimes 12, 14, 16 hours a day. And they're certainly not stuck because they don't care. I mean, these are some of the most caring, empathetic people I've ever met. They're stuck because no one has ever been honest with them about what a version of this that actually works looks like. And honestly, it is no wonder because you have TikTok influencers who are telling you that you can make $200,000 a year as a side hustle. And you've got the media on the other side telling you that we're heading into a recession. And somewhere in the middle of all of that noise, your drive, your determination, the ambition, the goals that you had, they just slowly get worn down. Because the hard years do that. The people that you surround yourself can do that. Your partners, your family, your friends who have never run a business a day in their life, they say things like, oh, you're so lucky. Oh, you should be grateful that you get to work for yourself. You're doing fine. It's just the economy. And all of those times that you've sat around that networking table and your competitors are saying that things are okay, you stop saying to yourself that number out loud and you stop writing it down. You stop letting yourself actually want that big dream that you want. Because that goal that you set for yourself when you first started, I'm guessing it was probably to build $1 million business because that is the milestone that most retailers tell me that they have. Now, it may almost feel embarrassing to admit it. Here's what I want you to hear. Wanting to make $1 million in your retail e-commerce business is not greedy. It is not arrogant. It is actually the bare minimum of what a business needs in retail and e-commerce to make it worth everything that you are pouring into it. The hours, the stress, the risk, the fact that you probably haven't had a proper holiday in however knows long. It's keeping you small, it's keeping you safe, and it is keeping you exactly where you are. So let me put $1 million into perspective for you. And I'm going to show you that it's not actually that big a number. I looked up the most popular selling car in Australia and the US. And the answer actually surprised me. I mean, I'm not a car person, but I was very surprised that this was the car that came up because I actually don't know anyone who has one of these cars. It was the Toyota RAV4. It is the third highest selling car in America, only beaten by trucks. In Australia, it is the top selling SUV. I mean, the Toyota RAV4, I kind of thought it was the car that we had when we were in our 20s, but maybe it's made a resurgence. But we are going to use the Toyota RAV4 as our $1 million reference point. In 2021, so just 5 years ago, that car cost around $35,000. Today, that same car costs $50,000. Just 5 years later, a $15,000 increase. What you can buy today is far less than what you could buy 5 years ago with that same dollar. So if you just heard me say $1 million and you thought that's not possible, I want you to come and just math it out with me for a minute. You don't have to do any of the hard work. I will do it all for you. 5 years ago, in 2021, with my $1 million, if I so wished, I could have turned up at the Toyota dealership and bought 28 RAV4s. Today, if I went to that Toyota dealership with my $1 million in my pocket, I could only buy 20. My same $1 million now buys 8 fewer Toyota RAV4s than I could have done in just 2021. That's big, isn't it? And I'm pointing this out because you need to apply that same logic to everything that happens in your business. In the last 5 years, your cost of goods has gone up. Your freight, your packaging, your rent, your wages, all of it has done the same thing. It's all gone up. And yes, we then have external factors like the war and the tariffs, but the reality is our money is worth 20% less now than it was just 5 years ago. So in simple terms, if you in 2021 had a goal of $1 million, that same goal now needs to be $1.22 million. So that every day that you keep telling yourself that $1 million isn't possible, the economics makes it harder. But here's the flip side of that, and this is the really good stuff. Every day that you do work towards it, every dollar of revenue that you add, every profit improvement that you make, every piece of dead weight that you cut from your cost base, that compounds too, and it compounds in your favor. $1 million is 20 RAV4s. That's it. It's not a super yacht. It's not a mansion. It is 20 family SUVs that you can spot in any Target car park on a Saturday morning. And in retail, after your cost of goods, your freight, your overheads, your platform fees, $1 million in revenue is going to return you $100,000 in profit. That's a stat. The average profit margin for retail and e-commerce is 10%. $1 million gives you $100,000 in profit. If your retail or e-commerce store does $1 million in the next 12 months, that's what you can expect to have left over. That's the equivalent of 2 RAV4s. 2 RAV4s for a whole year of running your business. And I know what you're thinking. That doesn't sound like a lot. But here's what 2 RAV4s worth of profit actually means. It means paying yourself properly. It means a buffer in the bank. It means making decisions from a position of confidence instead of crossing your fingers and hoping there is enough money in the bank when a slow week hits. It is not a pipe dream. It is not an unrealistic number for someone who is serious about the business that they're building. It's the number that I think every single retailer listening right now should have circled on their wall. Because here's the thing, $1 million business, that was probably the dream when you started. That was probably the number in your head when you first signed the lease or built the website or placed the first order. And at some point, it was the goal. So what happened? When did you decide to give up on it? And more importantly, why are you letting a room full of people who've given up on their own version of it make that decision for you? And if right now $1 million still feels too far away, I want to tell you why I think that is. And it's probably not what you think. It is not your marketing. It is not your product. It is not the economy. It is not that you are not smart enough. It's not that you're not pretty enough. It's not that everyone else is better at business than you. It is that you can't read the label when you are stuck inside the bottle. Because I know what your week actually looks like. I know firsthand because I listen to hundreds of people every single year tell me. I know that you are ending it exhausted and you're still not sure if anything actually moved forward. Your systems are broken. Your marketing feels disorganized. You can't tell if a busy week was actually a profitable one. You don't know if your ad spend is converting. You're probably working 7 days a week and $1 million store feels like a pie in the sky dream, but it is not. And I want to prove that to you. On the 23rd of May, I am running a free live webinar called the $1 Million Store Blueprint. After working with over 5,000 stores, I'm going to show you what is actually going on in your business and what needs to change to get you to $1 million. This is not a tactics session. You are not going to walk away with a list of things to implement. You walk away with a blueprint. And for most people, that's going to mean doing less than what you're doing right now. But finally, focusing on the right things. It is free, it is live, and there are no replays, my friends. The link to register is in the show notes, but you can register if you're listening right now and you've got your phone in your hand over at mymilliondollarstore.com/blueprint. That's mymilliondollarstore.com/blueprint. So let me take you back to that networking lunch. Here's what I want for you. I want the next time that you're in that room to feel completely different. I want you to be the person who isn't doing the invisible scorecard math in your head anymore, because you don't need to. You know your number. You know what you're building towards, and you know that the benchmark that you used to use has nothing to do with where you're going now. Because here's what's actually possible for a retail or e-commerce store owner who gets clear on what needs to change. A business that pays you properly. A Saturday that is genuinely and completely yours. A Shopify notification that goes off while you're living your life instead of your business running you into the ground. Customers who come back without you chasing them. Clear data that tells you what's working. That was probably the dream you had when you started, and it is still possible, but it starts with getting honest about the benchmark that you've been using and replacing it with one that actually means something. And that is what I'm going to show you on May 23rd in my free live webinar, The $1 Million Store Blueprint. You can register over at mymilliondollarstore.com/blueprint. As I said, it is free. I am holding this live. There will be no replays, and it might be the most useful hour that you spend on your business this year. mymilliondollarstore.com/blueprint. And I will see you on May 23rd. So that's a wrap. I'd love to hear what insight you've gotten from this episode and how you're going to put it into action. If you're a social kind of person, follow me at the Salena Knight and make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if this episode made you think a little bit differently, or gave you some inspiration, or perhaps gave you the kick that you needed to take action, then please take a couple of minutes to leave me a review on your platform of choice. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more independent retail and e-commerce stores just like yours that we can help to scale. And when that happens, it's a win for you, a win for your community, and a win for your customers.